Welcome to the weekend edition of the Fast Five by Fear and Greed. I'm Michael Thompson, and hello, Sean Aylmer.
Hello, Michael.
Sean, on weekdays, it's all about the Fast Five, the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. On the weekend, we obviously still keep it to 5 minutes. It wouldn't be the Fast Five if we didn't, but we're going to pick out the biggest story of the week, our favourite story, the sleeper story, which is one that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, and the most remarkable story. So let's get straight into it. I'm going to go first with the biggest story of the week because the biggest story for me was one of the effects of the crisis in Ukraine. It's what's happening with oil at the moment. It was a massive week for oil prices. Hit 14-year highs. Brent crude topped out at almost $140 a barrel. Why? Well, there was a stack of reasons, all kind of tied to everything that's happening in Ukraine. But the big event really was both the US and the UK announcing they were looking at banning imports of Russian oil. That's the latest retaliation really against Moscow for the invasion. Russia's one of the 3 top global suppliers of oil. They produce around 10% of the world's supply, so it's a big, big move. Oil prices did cool later in the week as other countries signalled that output might increase there, but prices are still high. They are still very, very high. Considering 2 years ago, Sean, they were at record lows. We are feeling it at the petrol pump. You can't get petrol really for less than $2 a litre. Demand's climbing in the US. Summer driving season is coming up there. Prices are going to be very high for quite some time to come.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Michael. Throw in gas, throw in wheat, throw in nickel, throw in iron ore, throw in some of the battery metals. Commodity prices are incredibly high at the moment. That has big implications for the global economy as well. At the moment, what economists are now worried about is all this inflation feeding through to general inflation at the same time as slowing global growth. No one's really talking about stagflation. That's when you've got high prices and no growth. We're not talking about that yet, but it's on the horizon all of a sudden. Huge story.
Okay. Most remarkable story of the week. What was it for you?
Oh, look, for me, it's one about Guy Debelle, the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank, jumping ship. Okay, it's probably more remarkable for those people who know Guy Debelle and the economics profession. He's been at the bank for decades. He's really smart and is the obvious internal candidate to replace Phil Lowe, the governor, whose term finishes in September next year. Now, Guy Debelle is also a true believer around climate change, one of the few senior central bankers to be quite vocal about it and the economic impact of climate change. He's gone to Andrew Forrest, the founder of Fortescue, and his team at Fortescue Future Industries as Chief Financial Officer. I don't think anyone saw this coming. Why does a top public servant who's in line to get the biggest gig in his profession suddenly leave to go to the private sector? Quite remarkable.
Sean, only on a business podcast would movements at the Reserve Bank be considered the most remarkable story
Very true.
of the week.
Very true.
But you know what? I'm going to agree with you on that one. The sleeper story of the week, one that's probably not getting the attention that it deserves. I've got a nomination for this. It is a bit of an odd one to suggest as the sleeper, but COVID has kind of fallen off the radar in the last couple of weeks because of everything that's happening in Ukraine and the floods up and down the East Coast. We're not talking about it as much, but cases are spiking again. Late in the week in New South Wales, the state reported its highest numbers since January. Not surprising, mask rules have been scrapped. People have been confined indoors because of the weather. But we're being warned now that the new sub-variant of the Omicron strain could see cases more than double in 6 weeks. Doesn't appear to be more severe than the original Omicron strain, but it's about 25% more contagious. We're also likely to see a spike in cases as we head into winter as well. So with everything that's going on, it's a little bit easy to forget that we're still in the middle of a pandemic. I never thought COVID would be my sleeper story, but there you go.
A fair nomination. You're probably right. I just want to add another one, which I think was really, really interesting. It's from last weekend. China's political elite met in the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. They adopted a growth target of 5.5%. It's not as high as they've had previously, but what it does mean is that they are still going to be expanding at quite a pace. What they want to do is spend more on infrastructure, really important for Australia. That because, of course, we provide the iron ore that goes to the steel, that goes into infrastructure. Therefore, the fact that China is focused on increasing infrastructure spending, growing at 5.5%, really important for Australia.
Okay, time is against us, Sean, so we're going to have to race through our favourite stories pretty quickly. What's your nomination?
Disney going into gaming. This is a family-friendly company. We think about the movies, we think about the theme parks. Well, they've decided that the way to make money out of their subsidiary ESPN is through online gambling. No more needs to be said.
Okay, that is pretty good. But you know what? You say everyone loves Disney. Everyone also loves Maya. Well, actually, not everyone in recent years. Shoppers haven't really loved it that much, and also investors haven't loved it that much. But Maya is making a comeback, I think. This week, it announced its first dividend payment to shareholders in 4 years. Just 1.5 cents per share. So particularly big, but it's symbolic because of all the problems they've had in recent years. They've basically been stuck with a number of really big, really expensive stores, a lot of competition, particularly online. They've responded by starting to close underperforming stores, shrinking floor space, turning attention to online shopping. It is working. They've seen a big spike in online sales. Is it a triumphant return for Maya? I'd like to think so. It's a good story either way.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that.
Oh, wonderful. All right. Well, I think we just covered pretty much everything you need to know in the world of business in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
We'll be back on Monday morning with the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and this is the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed.